Good morning, everybody. I'm Rachel, one of the naturalists here at the Great Plains Nature Center, and it's story time because it is Wednesday morning and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So, here we are. The book that I picked to read today, I picked for a couple of reasons. Number one, hey Zach. Number one, it's a true story. So this is the story of a little bison calf that was born in a Kansas prairie up by Manhattan, Kansas, the Konza Prairie. And number two, there's some good information in here, and I think it's fun to learn cool stuff about the prairie. So we're going to be reading The Autumn Calf by Jill Haukos, who is a biologist who worked with the autumn calf up in Konza Prairie. Now, notice, these are not cows. This is a bison calf. So yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's jump in and read about this little calf's story. The illustrations are beautiful. For those of you who are very familiar with the prairie, keep an eye out for some of these prairie plants that you'll recognize. I love that inside the cover there are all these illustrations by kids of the autumn calf. Beautiful. I love the prairie burn here. And yeah, again, this is The Autumn Calf by Jill Haukos, illustrated by Joyce Moran Turley. When the little calf was born, the days were getting shorter. The upland sandpipers were done nesting in the prairie and had already left on their migration. When the little calf was born, the Maximilian sunflowers of autumn were blooming and cool breezes were blowing from the north. Ooh, and they give us some information about these little guys. Maximilian sunflowers are one of my favorites because they smell like Tootsie Rolls. Goldfinches and monarch butterflies love these flowers. Monarch butterflies look for nectar in the flowers as they migrate down to Mexico in the late summer. Goldfinches, this little guy, look for seeds, which are very nutritious to other forms of wildlife too. And the upland sandpiper, our GP&C crew actually went out looking for them to help with a shorebird project yesterday, and we saw some upland sandpipers that were still out. Sandpipers are birds typically found along the shores of lakes or oceans, but the upland sandpiper is unusual because it lives on the grassy prairie where there are no shores for miles. I love them. And there's our autumn calf. In the bison herd at Konza Prairie, the little calf stood out. She was bright orange. The other calves' orange baby coats had already been replaced by a denser, warmer brown coat. She alone, oops, I lost my place, still had the orange coloration of a baby bison. Aw, see? This one's already got its winter coat. The grasses growing on the Konza Prairie were starting to reach their tallest height. In some places, the grass was taller than the autumn calf, but it tickled the bellies of the older bison calves that had been born in April. And they can get very tall, 9 feet. Jill worked at Konza Prairie, where the bison lived. She directed the education program and trained volunteers to teach visitors about the prairie. Part of Jill's job was to know what was happening with the bison so she could share that news. When Jill first saw the little calf in September, she was surprised and then alarmed. Mid-spring is the normal time of year for bison calves to be born, not late August. Even though the little calf was a normal bison baby, Jill worried that such a small calf, born so late in the season, might not live very long. Winter can be harsh in the Flint Hills of Kansas. The first snowflakes typically fall by November 1st, although it is not unusual for snow to be on the ground in mid-October. The little calf was in a race, and all of the other calves born earlier in the year were already 4 months ahead of her. She was racing the calendar to gain enough weight and grow a coat dense enough so she could survive the winter. Jean, The bison herd manager at Konza Prairie kept a close eye on her. Look, there he is. His experience told him that the little calf would need to weigh at least 200 pounds by roundup if she was going to survive. The older calves were already experimenting with eating grass, even though they were getting milk from their mothers. They were growing big and strong and would live easily through the winter. Our little calf had not yet enough time to learn how to eat grass. All of her food still came from her mother's milk. Jean knew that the little calf had a smart mother, and he hoped the mother's knowledge and experience would be enough to help the calf survive the winter so she could eat fresh green grass in spring. And here's a fun little story about how wild bison can't be herded. It must be very difficult to be a bison herd manager when wild bison can't be herded. I'll let you guys take a peek at this book on your own to read some of these little side stories. The day of the Bison Roundup came. The roundup at Konza Prairie happens just once a year, at the end of October. Gene and his crew helped bring the bison to the corral. Veterinarians checked the health of the bison and gave them vaccinations to help protect them from diseases. It is during the roundup that the new calves get their own ear tags. Look, see how the adults do? Every bison on Konza Prairie has ear tags. The numbered tags tell Gene two things: what year the animal was born and who the animal is. Because each individual bison has its own special number, the ear tags help him keep track of the history of the herd. So it's kind of like having your very own name tag. And here's a nice little map showing us where Konza Prairie is here in Kansas. I've gone walking out at Konza Prairie and seen a lot of really cool wildlife out there. Gene was especially careful with the little calf. The bison don't like to be put in tight places like a corral. They can get so nervous that they can hurt themselves. A nervous bison is a dangerous bison. Our little calf would have to be especially careful not to get stepped on by a scared adult. Gene made sure the little calf wasn't too close to a bull or a big group of nervous bison. The autumn calf stayed with her mother and quickly moved through the chutes. Look, there's a little crow watching them. And if you want to know what the corral looks like, there's a picture. They have to move through this little tunnel to get where they have to go. When it was the calf's turn to be weighed, all activity stopped. Everyone waited to hear. Jean yelled out, 197 pounds. She wasn't 200 pounds, but she was close. That's really close. She might be able to survive the winter if her mother could take good care of her. Oh, I can't wait to see what happens. Oh, and then they talk about migration. But on Konza Prairie, the bison don't get to migrate. They're all so excited about the bison. The little calf got her orange ear tags. Everyone now recognized her as number 237. The orange ear tags were given to bison born between 2010 and 2019. The 2 at the beginning of the number told us that this bison was born in 2012. The 37 meant that she was the 37th calf to go through the chute and get new tags. Aw! Jill no longer had to guess who she was looking at. The ear tags made it much easier to identify all the different bison. There she is. The little calf was safely released back to the prairie, along with her mother and the other bison. It was a beautiful autumn day, and everyone at Konza Prairie hoped the good weather would last as long as possible. Ooh, maybe we should read this little predator's side note. Perhaps we'll figure out what happened to the autumn calf and come back to this one. So I'm going to leave my finger here so we can keep on with the story. Whoa. Slowly, autumn changed into winter. The days were cold and food was scarce. The bison calf was in danger, not only of freezing, but also of starvation or being hunted by coyotes. Can you imagine coyotes can eat a little bison calf? Luckily, the little calf had an old, wise mother who had been through many winters. She knew how to save her energy by avoiding the cold wind and lying down in the valleys. She preserved her strength and was able to provide warm, nutritious milk for her growing calf. And she was big enough to protect the little calf from being attacked by coyotes. Oh, and there they are. This calf is so lucky that she had such an old, wise mother. Ooh. The bison at Konza Prairie are able to freely wander inside a big 2,500-acre fenced enclosure. They can go down into valleys where it is hard for people to see them. Because of this, Jill and Jean lost sight of the little calf. The last time they saw her was in December. She was with her mother and a group of other bison cows and calves. Did you know that bison females are called cows? They hoped she was growing and getting stronger. If she made it until spring, then her chance of survival was much higher. I bet they wish they could have a bird's eye view of Konza Prairie, just like this red-tailed hawk does. Oh, one of the first signs of spring on the prairie is the return of the killdeer. Killdeer are birds with boldly striped feathers, long, thin legs, and a distinctive call that sounds like they're saying, "Killdeer, killdeer, killdeer." When Jill heard the first killdeer of the spring, she knew that if the little calf was still alive, she had survived the winter. The question was, had the little calf made it? 1 month went by, and no one had seen the calf. The calf's mother had not been seen either, so everyone hoped the two were hiding together somewhere. I love these killdeer. I love their red eyes and their necklaces. In the meantime, it was spring, and time was to get ready. My goodness, I will start over on that sentence. In the meantime, it was spring, and time to get ready for burning. Burning the prairie removes the old dead grass from past summers. Fire helps slow the growth of shrubs and trees that would take over a prairie if given the opportunity. By removing the cover of old grass, the soil is warmed by the rays of the sun. Rain can get to the soil faster without old plants being in the way. The soil gets warm and moist, and the roots begin to grow and send up new shoots into the spring air. Burning also releases nutrients back into the ground. The plants that grow after a fire are deep green and very nutritious. The bison love them. The bison are not afraid of fire. When fires are set in the Konza Prairie bison enclosure, the animals simply walk over to green grass and calmly graze, because green grass doesn't burn. The bison know they are safe there. Bison calves learn this lesson from their mothers and follow them to the green grass if fire gets close. Isn't that so cool? That's because bison are from the prairie. They're used to the prairie, and they know instinctively how to survive fires in the prairie. After the bison area was burned, Jill watched the herd calmly move onto green grass. As she was watching, she thought she saw a small calf that might be number 237. She ran and got her binoculars to get a good look. Yes, it was number 237. The little calf was there watching her, alive, healthy, and calmly eating. Jean guessed she had gained about 10 pounds over the winter. That's not very many pounds, and was now rapidly gaining even more weight. The little calf was a lucky calf. She had survived a long, cold winter and was well on her way to becoming a healthy, full-grown bison. That same week, the upland sandpipers returned. They had come back to the prairie to nest and raise their babies. The cycle of life on the prairie begins again. Aw. They have a really funny call. They go, woo, woo. Aw, and that's the end. So here's a picture of Jill, who was the biologist at Konza Prairie, who kept an eye on that little bison, and the illustrator. And of course, at the end, there are a lot of other illustrations of, it's the same illustrations of the Autumn Calf by some kids. Isn't it such a great book, Jay? I love this book. It's got so much good information that I skipped over, like how coyotes will prey on animals in the prairie, how fire plays such an important role on the prairie, and I just love it because it's also a story from our backyard and a true story. Let me just read this little blurb, and then I'll let you guys go find this book for yourself. I believe we carry it here in our gift shop, but I'm sure you can find it in other places as well. Again, it's called The Autumn Calf by Jill Haukos. But all natural systems include lots of different plants and animals. At the top of the food chain are the predators, which eat other animals. Examples of common prairie predators include hawks, owls, snakes, bobcats, coyotes, and wolves. Wolves! We actually used to have a subspecies of the gray wolf that lived here in the Great Plains. Predators are often misunderstood and thought of as the bad guys when, in fact, they play an important role in a healthy ecosystem. Predators keep the numbers of other animals down to prevent overpopulation and overgrazing. Coyotes are one of the most common predators on the prairie. Coyotes will eat just about anything, and not only other animals, but also fruit, grass, and dead things. If you ever get a chance to spend the night on a prairie, you'll probably hear the lonesome howls of coyotes as they communicate with their pack. And I would say, if you live anywhere near the country, or if you live in a place where urban coyotes are becoming more popular, you might just hear them in your backyard too. Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining me on this story time. I just adore this book. It's such a good story with such good information. And how cool is it that it's a real story from right here in our own backyards? So check out this book. I'll show you the back cover of Jill looking at a killdeer. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye and remind you guys that if you have little ones who want to come out and do a distanced outdoor activity, we do have our outdoor play tomorrow, which, weather permitting, we will be watching clouds and doing some cloud activities on the front lawn at 10 a.m., so the same time. But I guess that's it. So we'll see you again next week. Amanda is going to be reading you next week's story Wednesday at 10 a.m., and I'm looking forward to seeing what book she picks. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Jamie, and we'll see you next time.